You don't manifest money. That's the first thing you need to understand if you actually want to be wealthy. You do not manifest money. I know that sounds strange coming from a channel that teaches manifestation, but stay with me because this distinction is everything. Every money manifestation video you've watched has been teaching you to chase the symbol, the dollar amount, the bank balance, the paycheck. But Neville Goddard, who spent 30 years teaching people how consciousness creates reality, said something that most manifestation teachers conveniently leave out. He said wealth is not created. It is manifested by the arrangement of your mind, by your concept of yourself, not by the amount in your account, by your concept of yourself. You don't manifest money. You manifest yourself as a wealthy person. And that distinction, which sounds small, which sounds like semantics, is the reason your affirmations haven't worked. Your vision boards collect dust, and you keep bouncing between hope and frustration. Today, I'm going to show you the actual mechanism behind why some people seem to attract money effortlessly while others can't, no matter how hard they try. And it comes down to a single shift that Neville taught over and over again that almost nobody gets right. Let me describe your experience and you tell me if this sounds familiar. At some point, you found manifestation content. Maybe it was The Secret, maybe it was a TikTok, maybe someone recommended Neville Goddard. And you tried it. You stood in front of a mirror and said, I am wealthy. Money flows to me easily. Maybe you felt good for a day or two. You tried visualization. You saw your bank account with a big number. You imagined the house, the car, the freedom, and maybe it even seemed to work for small things. A random $20 showed up. Someone bought you lunch. You found a coupon you forgot about. But the big financial shift, the one that would actually change your life, it never came. And here's the worst part, and I think this is what nobody talks about. Some days you felt further from wealth than before you started, because now you had this constant, painful awareness of the gap between what you were saying and what was actually happening in your life. The affirmation became a reminder of what you didn't have. Sound familiar? Good. Because here's what Neville would tell you if he were standing right here. The problem was never your desire. The problem was never your effort. The problem was what part of your mind you were talking to and how you were talking to it. Let me draw this out because Neville laid this out very clearly in Feeling is the Secret. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. He said consciousness operates in two streams. Think of it like this. You've got two circles. Up here, the smaller one, that's your conscious mind. Down here, the larger one, that's your subconscious mind. Now, here's what matters. The conscious mind is selective. It's personal. It's where you choose your ideas. Neville called it the realm of effect. But the subconscious, this big one down here, is non-selective. It's impersonal. It doesn't judge. It doesn't evaluate. And Neville called it the realm of cause. This is where your reality is actually being generated from. Now, the critical piece, and I'm going to write this in big letters because this is the whole game. The bridge between these two, the only way the conscious mind communicates with the subconscious, is feeling. Not words, not pictures, not affirmations, feeling. Neville was explicit about this. He said the subconscious is not concerned with the truth or falsity of your feeling. It always accepts as true that which you feel to be true. Let that land for a second. Your subconscious doesn't care whether the feeling is justified. It doesn't check your bank account. It doesn't verify your tax returns. It simply takes whatever you feel to be true and says, okay, I'll build that. So when you stood in front of that mirror saying, I am wealthy while feeling broke, which signal did your subconscious actually receive? It received broke. And then it did what it always does. It faithfully, obediently produced more evidence of what you felt to be true. More bills, more anxiety, more situations that confirmed the feeling of not having enough. You weren't failing at manifestation. You were succeeding at manifesting the wrong thing. Your subconscious was working perfectly. It was just working from the wrong input. And most people never realize this. They think the technique is broken. The technique was fine, the signal was wrong. So if repeating words doesn't work, and even visualization often doesn't work, what does? This is where Neville introduced a distinction that changed everything for me, and it comes from his 1953 lecture called Sound Investments. Most people, when they want money, think of money. They visualize the number, they imagine the object, they dream about what they'd buy. But Neville said there's a world of difference between thinking of your desire and thinking from your desire. Let me show you why this matters, because it's easier to see than to explain with words. Look at this diagram. On the left, I've got a person standing outside a house, looking at it, pointing at it across a gap. That's thinking of wealth. That person's internal position is, I wish I had that. I'm trying to get there. Notice where they're standing. They're standing in lack, looking at abundance from the outside. Now on the right, I've got the same person, but they're standing inside the house, looking out the window at the world. That's thinking from wealth. Their internal position is, this is my life. I live here now. They're not trying to get anywhere. They've already arrived. This is the difference Neville was pointing to when he said, if I am still seeing what I saw when I was insecure, I have not succeeded in occupying that desirable end. I am still only thinking of it. The whole game is about where you're standing internally when you think. When you think of wealth, you are reinforcing your position as someone who doesn't have it. You're encoding the feeling of wanting, which is the feeling of not having. And your subconscious takes that feeling and produces more not having. When you think from wealth, something fundamentally different happens. Your internal position has shifted. You're not looking at wealth from the outside. You're experiencing your thoughts, your reactions, your whole inner world as someone who is already there. And here's what this looks like practically. Thinking of money sounds like I want to be able to pay off my debt. Thinking from money sounds like it feels good knowing my accounts are clear. Say both of those to yourself right now. Feel the difference? One creates longing, a reaching for something you don't have. The other creates this settled, quiet knowing, almost like a sigh of relief. That settled knowing is the actual signal your subconscious responds to. That's the feeling that gets accepted as true. Not the words, the feeling underneath the words. Now here's where Neville gets really practical, and this is from that same lecture, Sound Investments. He used a financial metaphor that I think is one of the most powerful things he ever said. He said you must stop spending your thoughts, your time, and your money. Everything in life must be an investment. And then he defined both terms very precisely. To spend means to waste, to squander, to lay out without return. To invest means to lay out for a purpose from which a profit is expected. Think about how you spend your consciousness on a daily basis. Actually think about it. How much of your mental energy today went toward worrying about bills? Scrolling through content that made you feel behind? Rehearsing worst-case scenarios about your finances? Replaying conversations about how expensive everything is? Mentally calculating whether you can afford something and feeling that little knot in your stomach? That's spending. You're burning your most valuable resource, your attention, your feeling, your consciousness, on states that produce nothing but more of the same anxiety. Let me draw this out as a simple ledger. On the left side, spending, no return. Worrying about bills, comparing yourself to others on social media, rehearsing financial problems in your head, reacting emotionally every time you look at your bank balance, doom scrolling through news about the economy. That's where most people's consciousness goes for hours every single day. On the right side, investing, compounding, imagining from the end, feeling wealthy before there's any external evidence, having inner conversations where you talk about your success as something that already happened, feeling gratitude for what you know is coming, falling asleep in the wish fulfilled. Every single moment, your consciousness is going somewhere. Neville is saying track it like a financial portfolio. Are you spending or are you investing? And here's the thing most people miss. You don't need a single dollar to start investing your consciousness. You need zero external resources. You just need to notice where your feeling is going and redirect it. And to prove this isn't just theory, let me tell you a story that Neville himself told in this lecture, because it's one of the most powerful examples I've ever come across. There was a man named Jimmie Fuller who came to Neville's lectures. Jimmie had $54 to his name. That was everything. He had a wife and a baby, and they couldn't even always afford a babysitter, but he and his wife came to every single lecture Neville gave. They spent their last money to be in that room. And Jimmie had something else working against him. This was 1950s America, and Jimmie was a black man. And his biggest internal struggle, the thing Neville worked with him on, was that Jimmie had accepted the belief that because of the color of his skin, all the marks and stripes of the world were against him. Neville told him something radical. He said the only thing that hinders any man is the state of consciousness in which he persists. Your background, your skin color, your starting point, none of that is the cause. The state you occupy is the cause. For 3 years, Jimmie kept coming to lectures. 3 years of investing his consciousness without external results. 3 years where nothing visible seemed to change. Most people would have quit after 3 weeks. Jimmie persisted for 3 years, and then in the 4th year, Jimmie Fuller netted $250,000. No starting capital, no investors, no family money. Neville said he did not have 1 penny when he started. He did not raise large capital. He didn't have it. He only invested God's coin. He invested his thought in the now. That line gives me chills every time I read it. He invested his thought in the now. He didn't invest money. He invested consciousness. He stopped spending his thoughts on limitation and started investing them in the assumption of wealth. And eventually, as Neville said, everything he touched turned to gold. That's not a metaphor. That's what Neville reported. Everything he touched turned to gold. Because the inner state was set and reality had no choice but to conform. If this is clicking for you right now, if you're starting to see how this actually works, not as wishful thinking, but as an actual mechanism of consciousness, then subscribe because we go much deeper into each of these principles on this channel. We don't do surface level affirmation content here. We get into the engineering of how your mind constructs your reality. And the videos coming after this one take each concept we've touched today and expand it into something you can genuinely master. Now, I know what some of you are thinking because I thought the same thing when I first encountered this. Okay, I get the theory. Think from, not of. Invest, don't spend. That makes sense intellectually. But what about when I look at my actual bank account and it's empty? What about when the bills keep coming? How do I feel wealthy when reality is screaming at me that I'm not? This is where most people quit, and it's exactly where Neville's most powerful teaching comes in. In The Power of Awareness, Neville wrote something that reads almost like a physics equation. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. I want you to really hear every word of that. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. He's not pretending the assumption will feel true right away. He's acknowledging it right there in the sentence. Though false, he knows it feels false. He knows your bank account doesn't agree. He knows your circumstances are screaming the opposite. And he's saying that doesn't matter. Because remember the whiteboard from earlier? Your subconscious doesn't fact check. It doesn't care whether the feeling matches your bank statement. It only cares that you feel it as true. When you persist in the feeling of wealth, even while your circumstances haven't caught up yet, You're consistently impressing your subconscious with a new pattern. And the subconscious, which Neville called the realm of cause, begins rearranging your outer world to match the inner instruction. There's a lag. That's real. There's a gap between when you shift inside and when you see it outside. During that gap, which could be days, weeks, or months, your only job is persistence. And here's the trap I want to name because this is the number one killer and nobody talks about it. The trap is checking. You do your session at night. You feel wealthy. You fall asleep in that beautiful state. And then the first thing you do in the morning is check your bank account to see if it worked. In that moment, you just sent a signal of doubt to your subconscious. You just spent the investment you made the night before. Because the feeling behind the checking, that anxious, did it work yet? That's the feeling of someone who doesn't believe they have it. And that becomes your new instruction. The checking impulse isn't bad because you're looking at numbers. It's bad because of the feeling state it puts you in. You go from the invested state of already having it back to the spending state of hoping and doubting. The wealthy version of you doesn't anxiously check their account every morning to see if they're still wealthy. They just know. That knowing is the state you need to maintain. All right, here's what you're going to do tonight. Not next week. Not when you feel ready. Tonight. This is Neville's most powerful practical technique, and he taught it over and over throughout his career. He called it entering the state akin to sleep, and here's exactly how to do it for money specifically. Step 1. Choose a single short scene, about 5 to 10 seconds long. That could only happen if you were already wealthy. And this is important. Don't visualize piles of cash. Don't picture yourself swimming in money like a cartoon. Choose something that implies the wish fulfilled. Maybe it's a specific conversation with someone you trust, where they say something like, "I'm so happy for you. Things have really changed." Maybe it's the feeling of looking at a bank statement and experiencing not excitement, not shock, but calm satisfaction. Like, of course it's there. Maybe it's sitting in a specific place you love, a restaurant, a home, a country, and knowing with your whole body that you can afford to be there. Make it specific, make it short, and make it something that implies the wealth is already done, already settled, already past tense in your life. Step 2. Lie down in bed tonight, get comfortable, close your eyes, and just focus on relaxing. Don't try to visualize yet. Just feel your body getting heavy. Feel yourself getting drowsy. Neville described this as the state between waking and sleeping. You're still aware, you still know you're in bed, but your body is deeply relaxed and your conscious mind is starting to quiet down. This is the state where your subconscious is most receptive. He said it is in sleep and in prayer. A state akin to sleep, that man enters the subconscious to make his impressions. Your conscious mind is the gatekeeper, and right now, the gate is open. Step 3. Now play your scene. But here's the key that most people miss. Don't watch it like a movie. Don't see yourself from the outside. Be in it. First person. If you're at a dinner table, feel the chair beneath you. If someone's talking to you, hear their specific voice. If you're holding something, feel it in your hands. And most importantly, feel the feeling that scene would naturally produce. Not forced excitement. The quiet feeling, relief, satisfaction, gratitude, security. Whatever your version of wealth feels like when it's real and settled, and you don't need to prove it to anyone. Loop that scene over and over, gently, not forcefully, until something shifts. Until it stops feeling like you're making it up and starts feeling like you're remembering something, like you're recalling a real event. That's the signal. That's when the impression is taking hold. Step 4. Let the scene carry you into sleep. This is the part people overthink. You don't need to stay conscious. You don't need to finish the visualization. Neville said your conception of yourself as you fall asleep is the seed you drop into the ground of the subconscious. Whatever feeling you fall asleep in becomes your instruction for the night. Your subconscious takes that feeling and works with it while you sleep, making connections, finding pathways, arranging what Neville called the bridge of incidents, the series of natural events that lead to your desire being fulfilled in ways you couldn't have planned or predicted. Step 5. Tomorrow morning, don't look for evidence. Don't check your email for a windfall. Don't scan your world for signs that it worked. Just go about your day carrying the faint residue of that feeling. The way you feel the morning after a really good dream, where the emotion lingers even though you can't quite remember the details. Let that be enough. And tomorrow night, do it again, and the next night, and the next. Neville said to persist until the assumption hardens into fact. Your only job is to keep investing. I want to leave you with something that reframes everything we've talked about today. Neville said we must live boldly. We must go through life as though we possessed what we want to possess. There is no one to do it for you. You yourself must go boldly on appropriating what has already been given to you. Most people are waiting for permission, waiting for evidence, waiting for someone or something to confirm that they deserve to be wealthy, waiting for the numbers to change before they'll let themselves feel it. Neville is saying no one is coming. There is no external authority that's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, okay, now you're allowed to feel abundant. The wealth already exists as a state of consciousness that you can occupy right now, not when you earn it, not when you deserve it, not when the bank account agrees. Now, you walked into this video thinking you needed to learn how to get money. I hope you're walking out of it understanding something fundamentally different. Money is a shadow. It's a shadow cast by your concept of yourself. And you've been chasing the shadow while ignoring the source. Change the source, which is your concept of yourself, persistently through feeling, especially in that powerful state right before sleep. And the shadow has no choice but to change with it. That's not a metaphor. That's the mechanic. That's the law operating exactly as Neville described it for 30 years. The distinction between chasing the shadow and changing the source is the only guide you'll ever need. If you want to go deeper into exactly how the subconscious processes these assumptions and why this works at a level most people never explain, watch this video next.